Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlick. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Excuse me. So, today is training camp 11, I believe. Confirmed, 11. So, plan will be to just kind of stick with the format. We're going to go through and do all that stuff. Couple things I want to touch on here that we need to mention. The Packers had a few tryout players. They tried out several DBs, Trey Dean, Trey Fluellen, and Josh Minkins. Of that group, they did end up signing Trey Dean III. Looks like he's being listed as a safety. I don't know exactly what's going. I've been catching a couple notes here and again, but I think we're going to get a little clarity on the safety situation here in a second. But Trey Dean has been added as a safety. Also, the Green Bay Packers added wide receiver Chris Hilton. So to start off with, Trey Dean III is presumably replacing Jonathan Baldwin, who was waived as being injured. I think we mentioned that yesterday. He also probably comes in the with the situation regarding Javon Bullard, which I know is a weird situation because he's kind of like a safety slot hybrid. So occasionally you'll hear reference to, we need additional safety depth because Bullard's hurt. Like, why? He's a corner. You know what I mean? But Trey Dean III was a UDFA 2023 out of Florida. Spent some time on practice squads with the Jets. He was with the Super Bowl Chiefs and the Browns. However, he had no regular season NFL snaps. He ended up moving to the UFL, the DC Defenders. I saw some people were posting some clips of him, or one clip in particular, just a very, I shouldn't say very blatant. You could argue he was trying to keep his feet in bounds, but he was standing there for a minute, and dude just came and laid him out on the sideline out of bounds. So I can dig it. 6'2", 200 pounds, so pretty prototypical safety size, a little, maybe an inch tall or something, 26 years old. Chris Hilton Jr., wide receiver, claimed off of waivers from the Washington Commanders. Presumably this has to do with the injuries taking place with Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed being banged up. In addition to Jonathan Baldwin being hurt, we also lost cornerback Marlon Jones. So those are the two guys that left and the two guys that came in to replace him. Although we also signed Keyshawn Johnson around the same time. So I don't know the one-to-one who's replacing who. It's just kind of numbers, But Chris Hilton Jr., UDFA 2026 out of LSU, which always gets me excited. Not that it usually means anything, but just the fact that we haven't seen anything yet, and you never know. Speedy, deep threat kind of a guy. 6 foot, 188. Former 4-star high school recruit. Track star from Zachary, Louisiana. But obviously didn't have enough appeal to get drafted. And wasn't with the Commanders for very long before they ended up waiving him. But he's only 23 years old, so we'll see what he can do. I would assume he's, again, just kind of a stand-in to replace the guys. And he makes sense to replace the specific guys, being a short, pretty fast guy, replacing Golden and Jaden Reed. I don't know specifically if he's more of a Golden or a Reed, but it makes sense. But all right, let's go ahead and get into this with Matt LaFleur at the podium. Oh, jeez. Oh, this is going to make people furious. Just going to start this thing off with a bang. We barely had a chance to even talk about this. I briefly mentioned it in passing yesterday. Didn't even know what it meant. I wasn't going to elaborate on it, but I suppose we might as well for those that are kind of unaware or didn't hear yesterday, whatever. The NFL made a new rule. They're going to allow coaches to designate a new person to throw the challenge flag. Now, I didn't know if that was specifically just somebody to physically hold it, just to take one more thing off the head coach's plate or something, because the decision's kind of, not really decision, but it's kind of coming from upstairs anyways, So, it could be a situation with the head coach in the headset saying, all right, throw it. And then, the guy who's standing next to the ref, his job is to chase that ref around and follow him and throw that flag when the head coach says, okay. I didn't know if that's what we were talking about or if this is literally this person making the decision, which I guess, it's not like the NFL can dictate that. It could just be up to the team on how they want to use this new rule. But the article that I had read at least interpreted it as allowing somebody else to be that key decision maker. Which, again, the NFL can't dictate who gets to make the decision. If they want to offload that decision to somebody else, they could technically do it. So, outside of allowing somebody else to hold and throw the flag, I don't know what exactly we're doing that is revolutionary. The Green Bay Packers or anybody else could allow somebody else to be that key decision maker. But anywho, the Packers fandom has been overwhelmingly excited with the idea that Matt LaFleur would give that decision to somebody else because of the belief, which, hard to argue against, that Matt LaFleur doesn't really, let's just say he doesn't have a great statistical track record with winning challenges. I don't know exactly what it is, but my recollection is it's not great. Well, how do we start off the press conference? Matt LaFleur says he'll probably hold on to the challenge flag despite the NFL's recent changes. So, just shoot those dreams in the face. Anywho, he goes on to say Domani Jackson had core muscle surgery in the offseason. It kept him out of the spring. He's currently trying to work through some of it. Hopefully he'll be out there shortly. Yeah, hopefully. Just be one more person Packer fans hope can take Keyshawn's job. If Benjamin St. Juste can't do it. Matt LaFleur was asked about the situation with Keyshawn and St. Juste, asking if that's a competition. His answer is everything is a competition, which is, of course, going to be his answer because to some degree it's true, although, let's be honest, that's not entirely true, and he understands the question and he's kind of just refusing to answer it. But I think we know that it's a competition. He's right. Everything is a competition. Cisse could lose his job and be the number 3, 4, or whatever if he continues playing poorly. Not continues. If he starts and then continues from there playing poorly. Matt says that Jalen Simpson is really making an impact. Shouts out his interception at the end of practice yesterday and says he's growing and playing with more confidence. He says he hopes Carrington Valentine with his hamstring injury will be back next week. And Matt is planning on playing Jordan Love on Thursday. Says he has the right to change his mind on that. So there's been a lot of, I brought up, sort of the joke that he's going to start the starters because of Rodgers, whatever. And got a little bit of pushback on that in terms of like, that's not what he means or whatever. There you go. He's asked about Jordan Love's pre-snap work at the line of scrimmage. This is largely coming from a clip of him saying that he's the best that he's ever been around in regards to that, which obviously everybody's ears perked up because what about Rodgers? So this is essentially a follow-up to that. He said he's so in tune with everything we're doing. Shoot, it happened today. We were in there talking about looks, about what he can do, and he came up with something I hadn't thought of. He has total command. LaFleur also says, in response to what I don't know, but he says, I think what's been great about this camp is we've seen a lot of different things from both sides of the ball. On Josh Jacobs, he says he's going to be out for at least this week. We got some reports as the Packers hit the field. Jaden Reed and Matthew Golden are both back. To what capacity, I don't know, but here they come. Dean is wearing 35. Oh, they did. They brought in Fluellen as well. Okay, I didn't see that. Fluellen is here wearing number 48. So there's that third guy. We mentioned there were 3 that left. This is going to be the last practice before the preseason game because obviously they're going to take a day off prior to that game. So we'll see how much they put in today. Valentine also out there right now. So funny. We've talked about this before. It's funny to me how little the coach actually knows. I think we underestimate how much power the medical staff has over these things. That really is a separate part. The coach coaches who's on the field. He doesn't decide who's on the field. The GM And then for the injury stuff, the medical staff, they're the ones that make those kinds of different decisions for who gets put on the field. But he just coaches who's out there. So when he plays dumb on these injuries and stuff, he genuinely doesn't know. He finds out when we find out when these guys hit the field. Because he just said Valentine would hopefully be back next week, and then here he comes running onto the field. Josh Wiley also back. It's great for our tight end room that's been missing some people for some time now. So, great day so far as moving in the right direction, so long as today we don't see a bunch of injuries crop up. All right, well, I just got caught up on stuff. We'll probably get into some teamwork pretty soon here. So why don't we take our first break, and we'll be right back. All right, first of all, it's officially been announced by the Minnesota Vikings that Kyler Murray is going to be the starting quarterback. It's funny because it really just goes to show that this competition wasn't a competition at all. It was kind of a sham. I was going to talk about it maybe tomorrow, but early reports are that J.J. McCarthy looked terrible and Kyler Murray looked great. And then the pads went on and they started bringing some pressure and all that stuff, and Kyler started looking kind of terrible. There has been a ton of panic across Vikings, not so much social media that I've seen, but, content creators. And the funny thing is, one of the things that I saw said something to the effect of, if this competition is actually real, if you're telling me that you're actually giving J.J. McCarthy a real opportunity to win this job, considering how bad Kyler Murray has been, that should warrant J.J. McCarthy to actually start getting more reps with the ones. And what do they do instead? In the midst of him playing terrible, they give him the job. Why would you do that? Why would you do that now in the midst of everything falling apart? You still have time. Because everybody is starting to talk about how bad he looks. It's because they're talking about how bad he is. They don't want it to shake his confidence. And so they feel the best thing that they can do to build up his confidence through this rough patch is to kill this facade that there's actually a competition going on and just award him the job and say, you're that dude. So now, instead of actually doing what you should have done if it was a competition and actually giving McCarthy more opportunities, we can actually give Kyler all the opportunities with the ones, which is not only good for his confidence, but hopefully can help him through this rough patch. Because early on, when he was looking good, it looks like everything's locked down, we're all good. Now it's a little bit panic time, because what the heck, this is terrible. So in a weird way, If you haven't been paying attention to any of this as Packer fans, this is fantastic news, because they're doing this seemingly as some kind of a panic tactic because things are going poorly. Intuitively, you would say he won the job because everything's going so well. It's actually the opposite. They didn't give him the job when things are going well. They gave him the job when things started falling apart. So we'll continue to keep an eye on it. It's one of those back pocket things. But just so you know, that is what's happening over there in Minnesota right now. Andy Herman says, I don't see Carson Barnhart, likely one of the releases, but haven't received any confirmation. Tom Silverstein says, Packers have released guard Dylan Barnhart and tight end Drew Biber to make room for the new additions. Latest is safety Trey Dean, who is on the field today. All right, we got the first up starters here. Love at quarterback, Lloyd at running back. Moore, Melton, Watson as your wide receivers. It is actually kind of important information to see sort of the breakdown of the hierarchy. But Moore, Melton, Watson at wide receiver, Wiley back at tight end. Good to see. Offensive line is Morgan, Burton, Ryan, Monk, and Zach Tom. Again, where is Belton? This is 3 or 4 days now that Belton has not been a starting interior offensive lineman. I mean, it feels like it's dead. And we're kind of just trying to decide if Burton and Monk, who goes where. There's still obviously a very good chance that we already have a left guard, and that job is not necessarily up for debate, but they're going to give him an honest chance to actually try to win that job while also figuring out who the best right guard is. I mean, that's just kind of how it feels at this point. Like it feels like it's just done. It's not even really a competition at this point. which, I'm fine with. I was hoping that Belton would take that massive step, and it would need to be massive. I mean, massive just to become average. But, he's a big road grading monster. It would be great to have a guy like that at right guard or, anywhere really. But, not so much. So hopefully he can, I guess, again, sticking with my preference of keep him where he's going to play. If they're determined to make him a right tackle, fine. Let him stay at right tackle. Let him learn to be a right tackle. Let him be a backup right tackle for as long as Zach Tom is playing. And then, if he gets hurt, we got a right tackle. If we end up moving on, maybe he can be our right tackle for a little while. Whatever. But it just kind of feels like that's where we are. We'll see how long it takes before Belton gets another snap at right guard, if at all. Defense. Again, Sorrell and Lucas Van Ness are on the outside. That's another thing that does not seem to be a competition. We'll see if anybody cracks that number 2 spot at any point. On the interior, we have Stackhouse and Ford. Behind that is Zaire and Coop. Then we have Cisse, Oladapo, and Nixon. It is interesting and kind of cool to see where Oladapo fits here, whether it's, set or just trying it out. As far as the safety role, is he a McKinney? Is he an Evan Williams? No, he's more apparently of a Javon Bullard. Maybe. Again, I don't know. But these are kind of important things to keep an eye on, just on the off chance that, Bullard gets hurt, whatever the case may be. And again, it's Cisse Nixon to start things off. Sturdivant getting some snaps with the ones during team. Love to Watson on a patented out route. Love to Golden for a nice pickup on a bubble screen. Love gets immediate pressure from Cox and hits Wiley's feet with the pass on a bootleg. Zaire Franklin shoots into the backfield for a tackle for a loss on Strong. Cox gets off a block from Swinson for a run stop at the line of scrimmage. So another fast and violent start for the defense. It has been all defense all day for pretty much the entirety of training camp. Rough couple of reps for Swinson. Now Kelly gets off his block for a run stuff. Taylor to Shepard over the middle on a rollout. Nice pickup. Defense lost him a bit. Ford stuffs a Martinez run. Now Ford with a would-be sack of McCord, partially due to coverage. There's a lot of things you can say about a lot of guys, but Ford, to me, has never been a serious thing, He fits a prototype of being kind of that nose tackle, so you could theoretically use him in certain situations, but he's not good, he's not there, whatever. He has had a very good camp. For whatever that's worth, he really has. Or I guess at the very least what I can say is he's actually making an impact which I have not seen from him before. Lucas Van Ness with a nice pressure versus Zach Tom forces Love to step up and sacked by Oladapo. Of course it's Oladapo. Why would it be a normal pass rusher? Lucas Van Ness may have had a sack himself if it was a game. Love lots of time to throw in red zone, but forced just to throw it away. Great coverage on the back end. Love to Golden for a touchdown right at the pylon. Cisse couldn't quite get to it. So, again, some really good battles there, fortunately, with Cisse and the starters. Nice coverage and a pass breakup by Mark Perry. Nice job in pass pro by John Williams on Kelly. Williams currently at left tackle with the twos. Devonshire getting some outside reps with the twos, with Simpson kicking into the slot. Haddon also working with the twos in the slot. Love gives Sky Moore a chance at a jump ball and throws a fairly incredible ball where only Moore could get it, and he pays it off with a high point catch over his helmet for a big gain. Impressive from Love and Moore. Apparently on that play, he did not get his second foot down. Wes Hodkowitz says, in red zone, Sky Moore shows his hops in the back of the end zone, but McKinney prevents the second foot from coming down. Now, Cooper breaks up to Dabney on almost the same spot. Love under plenty of pressure today, coverage making him hold the ball. DDS out today with illness, FYI. Hopper tried to punch out a ball, unsuccessful. Next play he tries again, and this time forces a fumble on Nixon. Really nice play. Cox with the recovery. Taylor to Naylor for a touchdown in red zone. It's been all Nixon with the ones and St. Juice with the twos so far today. Another maintenance day for Aaron Banks, too. Go figure. Trey Smack goes out for some field goals. Makes from 33, 41, 43. misses wide right from 45 and then makes on his second attempt from 45. He is now 20 of 28 for camp. So I want to take a break here, but when I come back, I want to take a look at this real quick, just in terms of like what is good field goal kicking. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Now, I'd have to go back and look at the specifics for Trace Mack, and maybe that can be a fun tomorrow thing, or not so fun. But break down where the specific misses happen. But let's just assume all kicks are equal, the 20-yarders and the 60-yarders. 11 kickers last year were 100% on their extra points. That's out of 36 eligible kickers. 24 of 36 were 95% or better. 32 were 90% or better. The worst kicker was 80%. He was 20 of 25. So we're talking 33-yard kicks here. As far as field goals, 10 were 90% or better. 27 were 80% or better. 35 of 36 were 70% or better. Only Joshua Carty was at 67%. At his current rate, he is at 71%. That would make him the second worst kicker in the NFL, behind what Brandon McManus did last year. He was at 75%. So again, I've said I will accept 4 of 5. Even that is not great. 4 of 5 is 80%. That would rank 27th in the NFL. So even that is not necessarily good enough. If you're wanting to be top 10, you're making 90% of your kicks. So that is, if they give you 5 opportunities, you're expected to make 5. If you miss one, that sucks, and the next time you get 5, you better make it. And if you do, then you're at 90% over those 10. So the expectation is at 33 yards, when they give you the extra point kicks, you need to be 100%. That's the expectation. You don't miss those. If we're talking in the 20-yard range, it's 100%. If you're talking in the 30-yard range, you need to be 100%. In the 40-yard range, if we're talking top 10-ish kicker, which again is really just like top third-ish, you make 100%. 12 kickers were 100% from this range. If you're talking 50 yards out, this is where it really drops off. Top 10, you need to make 80%. So this is where, again, when I say it's okay for you to be 4 of 5, it's okay for you to be 4 of 5 from 50-plus yards out. This is what top 10-ish kicker stuff looks like. If you want to be just top 15, it's pretty close to that. You're still 100% from the 20-yard range out. You're still 100% in the 30-yard range, which includes extra points. If you're talking 40-plus yards, if you want to be just top half, you need to be 90% from 40 yards out, between 40 and 49. So again, 5 for 5, 9 for 10. And then from 50-ish yards out, that's where you get to be, it's about 73%. So roughly his entire average right now, which is about 71-ish%, that entire average would be kind of okay. It would be below average if he was just kicking 50 yards out. Just so we're clear on like where he's at compared to where the target is, not even close. Essentially, kickers these days are so good, they basically just don't miss, is the bottom line. Now, I don't know that, because, I'm looking at top 10 for each individual category. Is anybody going to be that perfect across the board? Probably not, but these are targets. This is what you're shooting for. This is the expectation. If we look at the actual top 10, as far as kickers, they had 91 or higher PFF grades. Again, the lowest was Zane Gonzalez on extra points at 94%, but it's, 98, 99% for a lot of these guys. Only one was less than 100% in the 20-yard range. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but you get the idea, right? We're 4 of 5 is absolute bare minimum from now on. If you look at the top 10 in terms of PFF grades, Jake Bates for Detroit, who was number 14, had an overall field goal percentage of 80%. So that's where you would be at an 80% just across the board. The highest that you have here is 14th. And that's if he maintains 4 of 5, I'm saying. Now we have Aaron Mosby getting looked at by trainers after getting up slowly during the punt period. Long snapper Cal Adamitis now getting looked at. How in the world we can be down 2 long snappers, I don't know. It appears his day is done. That was fast and not good news. Jordan Love and the ones haven't been able to get much going against the number 1 defense, but now they're lined up against the 2s. Yikes. 4 straight completions to Watson, Melton, Watson, Dabney. 5th pass was to a wide open Melton for a potential big gain, but he dropped it. Love with a dime to Sky Moore, put it right in his hands over the shoulder catch, but Moore couldn't hang on. Simpson had good coverage. Taylor throws one deep to Johnson, but it hangs up, and Evan Williams makes the easy pick. McCord, nice rollout and throw to Yasmin. Tried to fit one downfield to Shepard, but McKinney was there to break it up. Just no running room for any of these running backs. Martinez stuffed at the line. And it looks like that is going to do it for training camp. Got some bad news for the Baltimore Ravens. Cornerback Nate Wiggins was carted off the field an hour into Tuesday's practice after suffering what looked to be a left leg/knee injury. 2024 first-round pick. Couldn't put any weight on his leg when he was heading to the team facility. Had his arms draped over trainers to go inside. Wiggins is the Baltimore Ravens' top corner. That is brutal. Cat's outside begging me to come hang out with them, so I should probably go do that. What else we got going on? Well, we should probably bring this in here. Let me switch over the audio. I don't know how much to put into this because Adam Schefter loves to speculate and then we pretend that it's like some kind of an insight. But he's talking about the NFL reviewing things and possibly sending down suspensions for players. He talks about James Pierce, said he was in a really bad situation. He will be suspended. And then, let's see if I have this queued up right. He goes on to say this.
Being reviewed include that of the Rams wide receiver, Puka Nacua.
Talking about additional players. Let me back it up more because I didn't get the right thing in there.
Question is, how long? Is it 6 games?
Talking about Pierce.
Is it longer? 8 games? 10 games? What is it going to be? A season? Don't know how that's going to come down. But James Pierce, I believe, is going to be suspended here. And it's not just James Pierce. Cases that I believe are now being reviewed.
Okay, so that's the weird part of this whole thing. Cases I believe are now being... Why do you believe that? Why? Is it just because like this came down and then you thought, ooh, I wonder if, or did somebody tell you something? What are you talking about?
Include that of the Rams wide receiver, Puka Nacua, who could potentially face discipline for some of the offseason headlines that accompanied him and some of those incidents last year with another woman, what did and didn't occur. We'll leave that to the NFL to figure out what did and didn't happen. But it's possible that when the Niners and Rams play in Australia, it's within the realm of options that Puka doesn't play in that game. It's also possible your team, the Green Bay Packers, are going to lose Josh Jacobs. That also still is under review and still a pending situation with the NFL.
Okay, so that's a matter-of-fact statement. He's not saying I believe or I think. So I'm hoping he chose his words carefully and he is aware that that is under review and they're going to make a determination.
We saw the case with the Broncos standout defensive player Jonathan Cooper. That's still under review.
All right, we'll leave it at that as he goes through the rest of the list. Now, I don't want to make any statements. I mean, I have thoughts, but I need to look in a little bit closer. I guess, depending on the actual status of where the state or the prosecution is with the Josh Jacobs situation, my initial thought, and I may be wrong about this, my initial thought is I can't imagine that the prosecutors are going to say, you know what, let him go. We don't have enough to go off of right now to say that anything happened here. but the NFL is going to say, well, I don't care, we're going to suspend him anyways. I understand that it's a serious thing and you want to appear strong, but punishing somebody with no proof of anything bad happening is an immoral thing to do. And doing immoral things is not necessarily a great way to try to take a moral stance. So there's going to have to be some kind of evidence or data that they're privy to that we are not. Speaking of, and I wasn't planning on talking about this, so I don't have, again, all the facts straight, but I believe it's the same woman that called the police on Josh Jacobs. There is a new body cam thing being released of her having an absolute meltdown in what looks like a hotel. Apparently the guy was with her, they were kind of dating or whatever, and they started drinking and she kind of went crazy. And the guy, he said like he saw something switch in her and he started backing away like, okay, we need to stop drinking. This is getting out of hand. And she's screaming and ranting and raving, basically saying saying very crude things that she did with Josh Jacobs. Let's just say was dating Josh Jacobs, saying he's worth $12 million or he got $12 million, or where $12 million came from, but he's got $12 million. Why would I be with this bum? And she's just having an absolute meltdown. So that doesn't mean that she's wrong, that something happened, but it doesn't hurt Josh Jacobs when there's multiple instances of seeing her character being as somebody that is somebody that causes very loud psychotic disturbances, maybe when she's under the influence, et cetera, et cetera. So again, this kind of came out of left field, so I haven't really looked into what evidence there is or isn't. I found it very odd that they immediately, I don't want to say dropped it, but were like, nah, we need to back off this for a sec, and then have not revisited it. And the only thing I've seen since then is this lady. I think there's been numerous things coming out about her where she does not seem super mentally stable. So we'll see what ends up happening. And obviously, if charges do come down against him, then that's probably going to lead to, at best, a suspension, potentially something worse legally. But again, this has got to be a relatively high-profile thing for that department, and they're just, or that office, the DA, whatever. And to this point, they have not been able to do anything. All right, well, it looks like that is about it, so I'm going to leave it at that. Y'all have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one.